Well, hello, everybody. It's Thor. And today we are going to be talking about the July predictions. There's a lot of big events happening this month. So I want y'all to be aware of that. This month is going to be crazy. And just like many of you are probably thinking the last couple years have been crazy, since 2020, this is going to be a crazy month. And it feels like the time that we're living in right now, it's like there's this change and transformation that's happening, and it's happening at an accelerated pace. And that's really what we see with the new ascension energies. So even though there's a really important Mars transit that's going to be happening through the month of July, and Mars is typically associated with negative things, we typically associate Mars with war and anger, and there's going to be plenty of that this month and in August, okay? But what I want you to know is Mars is primarily the energy of transformation. It's the energy of yoga. It's the energy of healing. So if you can tap into that energy, you can have you can make a lot of spiritual progress, and you can have some really big awakenings, really big Kundalini awakenings during this time. This is a time of the Great Awakening. So this is a time of almost like Charles Dickens' book, A Tale of Two Cities. It's the best of times, it's the worst of times. And that's what we see with this ascending timeline and descending timeline. And the planets are just giving us an energetic picture of what we can expect for the next couple months. But I do foresee things are going to get wild. We could see governments change. We could see massive, important political leaders resign during this time, especially the next 6 months, with Saturn being in the sign of Capricorn. And we're going to talk about that. There's a lot of big things happening this month, especially the second half of July. There's going to be a lot of craziness. So obviously, I do expect a lot of trouble in the stock markets. Of course, always go to your financial advisor, but I do see a lot of problems there. Also, if you guys are new to my channel, please like and subscribe. Right now, I'm running a special. If you guys are interested in a reading, 20% off if you use codename Thor on my website, and details are down below if you guys are interested in getting a personal reading and understanding where the planets are in your chart. So I have a presentation. Let's take a look at that. What I wanted to talk about, many of you might not be aware of this, is this time that we're in at the moment. And we're really in this time, there's these ages, and the yogis and the rishis basically calculated, that we go through these time cycles on the earth. There's essentially these times where consciousness goes through like this phase of basically raising or increasing. And then there's phases where consciousness will actually lower itself, and it's like a dark age where we're going into the lower 3 chakras. So that's where we've been really since, when we're thinking about the last 2,000 years with this war energy and this patriarchal domination type of energy. That's where we've been. We've been in this Kali Yuga, which is an age of not a really fun age. It's an age of a lot of deceit and darkness, and that's what we're getting out of. So let's explain. I'm going to explain to you guys what Kali Yuga is. And this comes from some of the scriptures here. So Kali Yuga is described as an age of darkness, confusion, and a lack of dharma. I would even say lack of empathy and compassion. And okay, so this comes from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is very important stuff. So I kind of summarized it for you guys. But during Kali Yuga, and I'm sure you guys have noticed, money alone will be the measure of a person. So they consider you a good person if just by your wealth and your money, okay? And law and justice will only favor the powerful. People will only marry or be in romantic relationships for money and for physical attraction. A person's spirituality will be judged on external symbols. So for example, in recent times, it's been this whole prosperity gospel thing, where they believe that if the more money you have, the more that God is favoring you. Okay, so that's really popular, and it was popular in the religion that I grew up in. It was seen that if you had a lot of money and wealth, well, God must really love you and God is blessing you. But that's one of the signs of Kali Yuga. Deceit and hypocrisy will be praised as a virtue, and people will rise based on qualities of deceit and cunning. So that's really been the age we've been living in. So if you think about it, if we're being dominated by people who have have gone up the hierarchies based on qualities of deceit and cunning, it's no surprise that as the planetary energies are shifting, we're going to see a lot of chaos because these people don't want to let go. Because we're going towards this new age of compassion, empathy, living from the heart center. So those people that are living based on those lower three, egotistical chakras, the negative ego, fear, greed, they're not going to want to let this whole new age come into play. So that's why we're at this transition point where there's going to be a lot of chaos. And that's why I called this video End Time Madness. And we're going to talk a little bit about what is end time madness, because you're probably wondering, what is that? So let me go back to the presentation. So the ascension frequencies are essentially, that's what's happening right now. So with this whole Mars transiting Aries, with Rahu and Uranus, it's really an increase of the planetary vibration. Even though I might have some predictions saying that, this looks like a really cataclysmic event. For example, there could be earthquakes, there could be wars, there could be, we could see an increase in food prices, energy prices, and things are not looking good on the physical plane. What I want you to know, this is really an influx of ascension energies that are coming in. If you're grounded in the self and you're really grounded, this is not going to be a time that's really fearful. If you're actually taking personal sovereignty over how you feel and your emotions and your spiritual self, if you're taking full sovereignty and realizing you're taking full responsibility for all that, it doesn't matter what the outside events are doing. So the outside events might be reflecting the delusions of the mass consciousness, but you don't need to be stuck in that. You could be totally at peace while things appear to be going crazy on the outside. So let's talk about Mars and Aries. If you guys watched my last video, we really touched on this quite a bit. So let's take a look. So this whole Mars and Aries, my last video talked about it. It's from June 26, 2022 to August 10th, 2022. And it's going to be flavoring the whole month of July. And there's going to be, lots of anger and resentment in the environment. Okay, because Mars is the karaka of anger. There's definitely going to be anger, and more than just anger. Like typically we think of anger like on a societal level. We think of like riots, or we think of protests. And of course there's going to be plenty of those, especially with the recent Roe versus Wade overturned decision. And I think there's going to be a lot more things happening that's going to cause a lot more divide and conquer and things like that, or division, definitely. But what I want you to know is that even on a personal level, you might notice people getting triggered. You might, it might be your coworkers, it might be your family. You might notice people like really venting their anger or projecting their anger because of this Mars and Aries. And this is going to be bringing up a lot of unhealed issues that people have. And that's what it is. When people are projecting that anger on you, it's some sort of unhealed issue that they have, where they're using some sort of ego defense mechanism strategy. So a lot of anger. Rahu and Uranus are going to be amplifying the energy of Mars. That's why Mars is like, this month is all about Mars, and it's all about Saturn. It's all about those malefic planets. So we're going to start seeing the dominoes this month, July. This is the dominoes. The dominoes, there's going to be some events happening. This is it, guys. This is the event. Okay, July, August, this is when stuff's going to be happening. A series of fast-moving events will start this month, culminating into some cataclysmic events towards the end of the month of July. July 31st and through August 2nd. So those 3 days, it's going to be exceptionally powerful with this whole Mars, Uranus, and Rahu transit. And I'm going to show you guys on the chart. So let's take a look at that. And let's go to this. So I did a chart of, this is the chart of July 15th. So I kind of went 2 weeks ahead here. But this is what the picture, the energetic picture of what we're mainly talking about in this video. And I wanted you guys to really see, what does this look like? And obviously I'm using a South Indian chart, which is a square chart to show you. So obviously we got Mars that entered there on June 26th, and it's going to be there the whole month of July. And we got Uranus and we got Rahu. All of these three planets are going to be in the sign of Aries the whole month. So this is flavoring the whole month. And I've been talking about this. And then around July 31st to August 2nd, those are the three important dates that I gave you. That's going to be when they're all at the same degree. They're all at about 24 degrees of Aries. And this is a highly explosive and volatile energy. I see escalations in conflict. There could be some sort of conflict, especially in the United States, because it happens in the 6th house of Joe Biden's chart, and it happens in the 6th house of the USA chart. So that represents conflict, war, things like that. There could definitely be attacks. We could see an escalation of the Russian-Ukraine conflict. This is not really a good omen. I don't see a decrease in conflict, unfortunately, and I don't see people really coming to peace. This is really like a war. This is like a window of significant warlike movements happening. I also wanted to show you guys, remember, Saturn is currently at the making of this video on June 28th. Saturn's currently in the sign of Aquarius, but it's going to be here in the sign of Capricorn on July 12th. That is going to be a really big shift of energy, a huge shift. That's the huge energy shift. And Saturn is finally going to be back where it was during the pandemic. That's where Saturn's going to be. It's going to be a return. Saturn is making that backwards transit through retrograde motion because there's some sort of unfinished business. And Capricorn represents the 10th house of government, of institutions. So I see some really big crisis manifesting. And possibly we could see the beginning stages of the crisis manifesting this month in July because of the Saturn going back into Capricorn on July 12th, because of this 3-planet Mars, Uranus, Rahu conjunction on July 31st. This is the month. This is where we're seeing a lot of what's happening. And these events are going to affect the whole second half of 2022. So this is really big. This is huge. Now, it doesn't mean get into fear, but coming from a place of awareness is the best thing we can do at this moment. Just being aware of the energies, being aware of the energetic environment. Okay. So also, you guys want to notice that Pluto is still in Capricorn. It's going to be there for many, many years, but Pluto is there. And what does Pluto represent? Okay. Well, Pluto represents things like massive transformations. So when Saturn's going into the 10th house of government of Capricorn and Pluto's there, and that represents transformation, we really could see some crazy things happening. And I'm even saying we could see a sovereign debt crisis in the next 6 months. This could trigger a big economic crisis. Okay. So I know people have been asking me about the cryptos, and I'm not going to give you specific advice on what to do, but I do see a big crisis happening where the government's going to have to do some sort of response. And maybe they're going to put in I feel like the government's going to have to intervene, because if they just let things flow, if they just allow things to unfold, it will be very catastrophic. Okay, so with Saturn being in the 10th house of Capricorn, I'm seeing there's probably going to be a return. There's probably going to be bailouts, stimulus checks, something like that happening. And there could be a sovereign debt crisis because we're seeing Saturn's having to go back. Okay, and we know that the last few months they've been raising the interest rates. So we could definitely see a sovereign debt crisis leading to the bankruptcy of large corporations. This is definitely a possibility. This is a really big time. Throw in that there's some sort of societal instability at the same time, and you have a recipe for a really big cascade of events. I mean, we're talking about protests, riots, conflict, throw in an economic crisis at the same time. You know, we're talking about a very serious time. So let me go back to the presentation. I also wanted to share with you, so we already know about Mars, and if you guys really want to know this whole thing about the Mars, which is flavoring the whole month of July, also check out my last video where I talk about Mars and Aries, okay? We're also going to talk about, and I haven't focused much on this, Uranus and Aries, okay? Uranus represents rebellions and revolutions, okay? So I expect more civil unrest and angry people, especially in the United States. And I'm saying that because of this whole Roe versus Wade decision. I think it's going to cause a lot more division. And major upheavals are to be expected. This combination can dangerously increase the level of violence and also crime. And political civil war is already happening in the USA. So when we talk, I know there's some people that talk about things like civil war. If we think about politically, it's already happening. I mean, we already have Roe versus Wade being overturned, and it was something that was around for 50 years. And there's like half of the states that are basically, you know, for it, and half are against it. You know, so there's already like this political realignment happening in the USA. So this is going to create more division, more chaos, more people that are not happy with things, okay? And then throw in that the inflation is really bad. The gas prices, the food prices are going up, okay? So I think also in general with this placement, we could also see worldwide. So I don't want to just focus just in, you know, on the USA, but worldwide, we could see a lot of unrest, and it could be with the economic factors coming into play. So let's go into the chart again, the presentation. So remember, guys, Saturn's going to go retrograde in the Capricorn. Now, we're not really going to talk about like where Venus is, the sun is, because I'm going to focus on these two transits for the month of July, because this is like the elephant in the room. So it's like we could talk about we could talk about Venus and how it's going to affect your love life or something like that. But this is really important. These transits are it's like not noticing, like I said, the elephant in the room. So we really have to talk about these. That's why I'm focusing a lot on this, even though it might seem like I'm focusing kind of negative. I don't necessarily mean to be negative. But Saturn will re-enter Capricorn July 12th. You're going to feel an energy shift around that time. So I want you guys to be aware of, you're going to feel like things are getting very serious around that time. You're going to feel either some sort of like shift in perception, or you're going to feel like some sort of like, okay, something's brewing here. So around that time, we might feel something brewing. There's something going on, okay? And then by the time we reach the end of July and the beginning of August, that's probably when we're going to be seeing, even though this transit that we're talking about, the Mars-Uranus-Rahu conjunction, I mean, it really could affect up to 30 days before or after as well, okay? So what is Saturn in the 10th house going to do? We just talked about it, more government restrictions, okay? So could we see curfews and an increased police presence because of social anger? Of course, yes. Yes, yes, and yes, okay? And government intervention in the markets. So I do feel like, you know, there's something happening. There's something happening where the government's having to step in and provide some sort of stability. Okay, so this is a really big. What is going to be so big that it causes some sort of instability in a culture or a society or a nation? That's why, you know, the nations will tremble. There's something going on. Also, it is true there might actually be earthquakes during this time as well. So be on the lookout for that. The Earth is basically a mirror reflection of the collective consciousness. So there's a lot of anger. The Earth will reflect that. The Earth will actually shake. So let's take a look at the presentation. So dramatic scenario causes government intervention, and that's what's going to flavor the next second half of 2022. Mars, Rahu, Uranus conjunction will cause some sort of catalyst events. These events will cause the government to implement restrictions. I mean, it could be a pandemic. I'm not sure if it's that. What it's going to feel like is it's going to feel similar. So that's what I'm trying to get, and I'm living through this with all of you. So I'm feeling like we're going to have a similar energy because Saturn's going back. There's going to be something similar to what happened in the last 2.5 years. Okay. So whether that's like restrictions or curfews or something, there's going to be a flavor of that, even if it's not necessarily a pandemic, although it could be. Okay. But it could be a lot of things where we feel like there's some sort of similarity to what's happened the last 2.5 years. So that's the big point I'm trying to make with all of this. And let's go back here. So I do see possible government bailouts. I think they're raising the interest rates right now. I don't think that's going to go on forever, even though, they're trying to get the inflation under control. I just feel like there's something coming that there's going to just be a big, either the markets are going to drop severely or something where the government's going to have to step in and kind of almost do the opposite. Because if they're raising the interest rates and then all of a sudden we got to bail out, that's kind of doing the opposite. Okay, so possible government bailout, stimulus checks. I'm not going to guarantee any of you guys stimulus checks, so don't be emailing me, Thor, where's my stimulus check? And remember, these are my interpretation of astrology. But yeah, we could see a resurgence, pandemic, war, civil unrest, all possible scenarios for government, stabilization, a call for government to step in. That's basically what we're talking about. So end time madness, what causes it? I mean, why do people in the last 2.5 years, why did we see people duct tape to airline seats? And why did we see people basically going crazy? I want to talk about that. It is important to talk about that. So let's talk about that for a minute. Oh, hold on, guys. All right, let me share screen with you. Let's talk about end time madness. Okay, so basically there's higher energies that are coming to the surface of the planet because we're going through this ascension process, okay? Because the nature of consciousness is going to grow. So the nature of consciousness is to grow, develop, learn, okay? So just like if we look at the 7 chakras, we're not supposed to stay at the root chakra. If we look at the way Kundalini goes up the spine, we're supposed to go all the way up to the crown chakra, the 7th chakra. So the nature of consciousness is to grow. So if there's a stagnant situation, even if it's a humanity and the whole planet is at some sort of crossroads energetically, consciousness itself is going to increase the vibratory energies of the environment. So this is what the end time madness is really about. End time madness is these ascension energies essentially affecting your nervous system. And I know to some of you it might be kind of new, but part of the ascension process has a lot to do with Kundalini awakening, and that is directly tied to your nervous system, okay? So let's talk about that for a second, end time madness. So really you're gonna have different groups of people during this time. You got higher consciousness. We'll use this time to shadow work, heal, forgive, release. Okay. Now, why is this bringing up issues? Let's talk about that for a second. The higher energies are culminating around us. Okay, our energetic bodies, our energetic nature, and those energetics that increase of frequency, that's really awakening our Kundalini and triggering awakenings in all of us. Well, when that energy is moving up, that Kundalini, if it encounters any type of blockages in the chakra system, okay, blockages could be unhealed emotional traumas, maybe from the past, unhealed resentments, unhealed issues. Those all form energetic blockages within your nervous system or within your energetic system. So those become pronounced, especially when we have a transit happening like Mars and Uranus and Rahu. and this energy is being like amped up really strong, well, this is going to cause people, if people haven't done a lot of work and they haven't, people have been mostly unconscious, haven't really done a lot of healing, well, those people are going to get really triggered. So that's part of why you're seeing the end time madness. That's why you're seeing people get triggered during this time. So higher consciousness people, if you've been doing a lot of your work, shadow work and so forth, you're going to use this time to do shadow work, heal, forgive, release, get yourself into a higher vibration. Lower consciousness will project all of their internal divisions, traumas, and wounds on others. Of course, this will exacerbate problems if this is projected on other unhealed people. So, and of course, the negative agenda can exploit this time with divide and conquer strategies. Okay, so if we have negative people controlling the planet, like Kali Yuga, we were talking about early, Kali Yuga, they're going to exploit the situation. So you have all these traumatized people projecting their unhealed issues on each other. And that's why you have civil unrest. That's why you have riots. You have, like a protest and then a counter protest. And these people are all angry at each other. Okay. That's all those people. It's really a reflection of their unhealed anger. That's what all this is. It's all this anger and people want to project it on each other. And apparently people want to project their anger so much they get duct taped to airline seats. It's kind of funny, but it's not funny, but it kind of is. Okay. But what I want to share with you is, despite what's going on the planet, despite what the planets are doing, and they do influence our consciousness. I mean, that's why we do astrology charts. These are energetic patterns that we're using as, we're reading through divination, and they do affect the collective consciousness and your individual consciousness. But as a sovereign being, always remember, you come from the source. You are a divine being that has free will. You have sovereignty. You have free will. Even if a planet is giving you certain tendencies, you can override that through your free will. One of the best books that I've read on spirituality is a book called Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And I recommend anyone with a spiritual book collection own that book and read that book. I think it was one of Steve Jobs' favorite books, in fact. But Autobiography of a Yogi, Yogananda talks about astrology in one of the chapters in the book. And he talks about his guru, Sri Yukteswar, was a really big believer in astrology as well. But one thing that Yogananda talks about is this God-given free will that we all have. So I wanted to share with you guys a quote from Yogananda. Oops. Let me go back a second, guys. Hold on. So I wanted to share with you guys a quote. Here we go. So personal sovereignty, and this is about the power you have as an individual. So Yogananda says, occasionally I told astrologers to select my worst periods according to planetary indications, and I would still accomplish whatever task I set myself. It is true that my success at such times has been accompanied by extraordinary difficulties, but my conviction has always been justified. Faith in the divine protection and the right use of man's God-given will are forces formidable beyond any the inverted bowl can muster. So in Yogananda's case, if you guys study Yogananda's history, astrologers told him he was going to get married. And, through his will, he wanted to live the spiritual life. So in a way, he was married to the goddess. Okay. But, he used his personal will, and his family was trying to get him to live the life of a householder. But through his love and devotion, he was able to live the life that he wanted. And he was able to spread that message of yoga and love and understanding. He took it from India and brought it to America. And I've been fortunate to visit the Self-Realization Fellowship in Encinitas, California, which is really nice. It's got some beautiful gardens. So that's what I see. I see this month is going to be really explosive. We're going to see a lot of anger out there. A lot of people that are angry, triggered. Politics are getting worse and worse. The divide is getting even worse, and it feels like we're watching a movie at this point, doesn't it? I'm going to see if anybody has any questions in the chat. Let's take a look. And thank you guys for joining me. Devika, hello. Ioli, hello. Everybody, hello. Thank you guys for being here. And let me know what you guys think. I know it's going to be a crazy month. So let me know down below what you guys think. Thank you guys for being here, and I hope to see you soon with my next video. So take care of yourselves. Take care, guys.